And welcome back to our program. The U.S. Supreme Court had a major ruling this past week, and here's what they said. High-speed internet service can be defined as a utility. This federal court has said this involving the use of Wi-Fi and how much it can be regulated. The court has basically said it is basic, just like water, sewage, telephone, along those lines. And quite frankly, I agree. America cannot be competitive if they don't make Wi-Fi signals available all over America, rural areas, cities, wherever it is, and particularly to low-income individuals. There is such a disadvantage when you don't have Wi-Fi. Most of the major jobs you can apply for now, you got to do it online. Certain things you can't buy unless you do it online. And yet in the city of New Orleans, down where I live, about 45% of the people don't have Wi-Fi. They can't afford Wi-Fi. And so something needs to be done to make that available. I saw a letter to the editor in a Mississippi newspaper here about 3 weeks ago where they were trying to decide what to do with the BP oil spill money. And one of the suggestions was, I think the government proposed to make Wi-Fi more available. And this reader was just very upset. Don't waste our money on internet. Why is that going to help the public? Well, he misses the point. It makes us much more competitive to have that Wi-Fi out there. Let me give you an example. I went to the public library here where I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, maybe 2 weeks ago to hear a lecture. I'm coming out of the library. There's 3 young men who were out there, about 16 years old, happened to be African American, and they were kind of laughing and carrying on in front of the library. One of them had a track emblem on his jacket showing he was a runner. And I'd run in college, and I stopped him, and we just got to talk a little bit. What do you run, and how fast do you run? And I told my story. I'm an old guy, but I used to run pretty swift myself. And so in the discussions, I said, why are you young fellas here at the library? They said, well, our mother drives about 30 minutes to bring us over here and drops us off because we don't have any Wi-Fi connection at home, and we have to have it to do our homework. So most of you out there can afford Wi-Fi. Your kids come home, your grandkids come home, they're using your Wi-Fi. Those young kids aren't competitive. Maybe they get an hour on the computer every 2 or 3 times a week. Our kids come home after school and have it there all the time, 7 days a week. Now, that's not just having disadvantages or helping the poor when they ought to do it themselves. That is making America competitive. That is putting us into the forefront of education. Let me tell you something. On my radio program this weekend is a professor who says that in 20 years, over 50% of the jobs in America today are going to be done by robots. So you've got to learn to be competitive. You got to use that computer. I've got a 7-year-old grandson who is taking a coding course this summer. And if you don't know what coding is, you can get on the Wi-Fi, maybe even you know how to lay out a basic website. But all of the technology behind all of the websites and the whole internet is done by coding, a very specialized form of math. I can't do it. 99% of you can't do it. But the future is in coding for the creative jobs that are going to take place in 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I've got a 7-year-old grandson learning coding. Most of our kids are not learning coding. So we've got to be competitive. We are way behind in terms of internet availability. In China, in many areas, it's much more available because those folks say it's a way of bringing our educational system up. This is not some perk or advantage. It is something very basic. And I'm glad the Supreme Court recognized that having Wi-Fi is just as important as having the water turned on, the telephone. And I hope our governments are going to make it much more available to so many people throughout this country. Hey, I'll be right back after this message. Thanks for watching.